What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? I'm going to give a couple minutes for anybody who wants to join us. We got a couple folks coming in. So who's here? Who's watching? Who's joining? Who do we got? Where's Mr. Steve O'Brien doing the sharing? He's kind of my hype man. All right. So I'm going to share a screen real quick with anybody who's watching. I just want to announce the winners of this weekend's Capsize Comrade benefit event for Chris LaCourse. So it was 42 anglers signed up, but it doesn't mean 42 anglers fished. We had donations or donators from basically all over the country. James Quinn from Virginia, just throwing in money to help support the cause for MAKB and Chris LaCourse. We really appreciate anybody who had anything to do with this. So 42 anglers signed up, about 148 entries. I had a hell of a day on the water, which was cool. 92 inches, just over 92 inches. Nelson DaCosta had big bass. So we're only paying out first and big bass. First was getting 30%. Big bass was getting 20%, and the rest was going to Chris. But I do want to announce that both Nelson and myself are not taking any money. We're donating it all to Chris. So 100% of the proceeds that went to this is going to Chris. We want to say we love you, Chris. We hope this gets you back on your feet. It's a nice chunk of change. And yeah, man, we love you. Cool. So we have Adam Rourke here. He's a gentleman hailing from New Hampshire. He's just one of those guys that you meet at tournaments and then you quickly take a liking to. It also helps that he also likes hardcore and punk, which is kind of few and far between in the kayak fishing scene. So I grew a liking to him real fast. Adam, what's up, man? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, John. How are you?
I'm doing well. So we just want to say welcome to the breakdown. Welcome anybody, all the viewers. Happy to have you here. So rolling off the bat, I like to know everybody's journey on how they got themselves into a kayak, how they started fishing. Lay it on us.
Yeah, so I didn't really grow up fishing much. Went out with my dad occasionally, every so often with my brothers and stuff, but I didn't really get started into like bass fishing. I used to just do bobber and worm, and as a kid, just found it really boring. But about my sophomore year in college, I met a good friend of mine, Justin, who I met him through another friend of mine who got assigned to him as a roommate. And I walked into his dorm room, and he had this massive tackle box. And I remember sitting there going, like, what is that? Like, well, you need all that tackle for fishing? Like, what are you fishing for? And he was like, super nice, even though I wasn't necessarily being so nice. I was giving him some shit. And he was like, we should go fishing sometime. So we went fishing, and he got me on like my first decent sized bass. I don't remember how big it was, but I remember like, oh shit, this is pretty darn fun. He was big into bass boat tournaments. And so one day he's like, you want to go? You want to fish one? And, I did that for about 3 years. It was awesome. And as I was getting towards the tail end of my college experience, I was realizing really quickly how expensive bass boats are. Number one, buying a truck, gas, all that stuff. And then, of course, as you're leaving college, they start talking to you about, hey, those cool student loans that helped you pay for this are, they're going to become due soon. I was like, I'm not going to, that's a lot of money. And so I realized quickly that the bass boat scene wasn't for me. But also I started getting pretty burnt out with it just because the culture is, there's some guys that are really nice and friendly and some of them just really aren't. So I came home from college after finishing my degree, and my father-in-law happened to tell me, he's like, hey, I just got a kayak. He's like, I got it for fishing. Like, we should go. And I was like, well, I don't have a kayak, but, I'll try it out. So they had an extra one. They let me try it out. First time out, I caught a bass, thing towed me around all over the place. And the next day I was at Dick's Sporting Goods. I mean, this is 12 years ago. So fishing kayaks really weren't a thing. So I got just like a recreational 9.5-foot kayak sit inside that honestly was probably too small for me, but just been doing it ever since. And then as I've, like everything else, started upgrading all of my stuff, got like my first real fishing kayak that I could stand up in, started, which is a Wilderness Systems Ride 115. It's an awesome kayak, still in the family. not mine anymore, but it's still going strong. I think it's a tank. But then I just started fishing some local tournaments. Got into KBF a while ago, doing like the monthly challenges and so on. Did my first event on Winnipesaukee, I think in 2016, 2017. That's where I met Jason Gardner. That's where I met Ken, and just kind of saw like, hey, this community is pretty nice. Like all the mass guys that came up, I can't remember them all now, but like super welcoming, super friendly. Jason and I started texting. That's still going on. And I've just been addicted to it ever since. And I'm just the type of person that when I get into something, and fishing makes it really easy, but when I get into something like that, it's like 100%. So, that one kayak led to, I think I have now like 5, not all mine, but just, ones for people to borrow. I have a minivan for fishing. It just spirals out, and I've been doing it ever since, traveling all over the place, meeting everybody. It's just a fantastic group. So yeah, that's pretty much the story. That's a quick version of it. I know we don't have too much time, but
I mean, like's yours, dude. We have all the time you want. That's just, diving headfirst into the story of Adam Rourke with kayak fishing. But I mean, it's a lot more. You're up to your neck with, running either you partake in the main Jason's trail.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to do with setting that up?
Yeah, so I help Jason. I mean, that's kind of like my role in most things, is helping Jason rig his kayak. Like, everyone's going to think I'm his slave. But thankfully, I think it was Jeff Levesque who finally started giving Jason crap on everything he puts together and saying, Adam did a great job. So I appreciate the recognition. I have to shout him out there. But, so I met Jason at Winnipesaukee the following year. I want to say, it had to have been 2017 or 18. We went down to the national championship together to Kentucky Lake. We really didn't know each other that well, but as you know, that's a drive where you really kind of forced to get to know somebody. So it was really good. We had a great conversation. And on the way down, we started talking about the current situation with our local trails. I had fished a local New Hampshire club. And, it was a good time. That's actually where I first met Judy Richardson. She whooped my ass in a Sun Dolphin a few times. And, I liked the idea. I liked the group, but something about the way it was run, it just wasn't. There was I don't want to badmouth anybody, but there was just like a lot of sponsors, and I was like, what is this getting us? Like, what is this? And Jason had fished a club that was similar in Maine, and so on the way down, we just started talking about like, hey, why don't we do something? And he was like, why don't you come fish in Maine? And I was thinking to myself, that's a lot of driving for me. I'm in New Hampshire. We were talking about the tournaments, and I had so much time. I'm mapping everything on Google, seeing how long it would be. And it's like a 2-hour drive. It's like, you can come crash at my place. And in my head, I'm like, well, let's just see how this first trip goes. And then I'll see, I'll see how that goes. So we just decided to kind of break off and do our own thing. And it's taken off like wildfire in Maine. It's a awesome group of guys. It was a really great group of guys and really talented fishermen. And that's kind of what started really in my eyes anyways, the trajectory to the Northeast or the elite kayak fishing, just because, there's a lot of people around here that traveling crazy distances across the country and stuff, it's just not feasible for them. They have family, it's expensive. But when we're sitting there talking, it's like, these guys deserve an opportunity. Like we need to do something to get them, recognized. And the EKF idea was something that Jason and Ken had hatched a year or two before I had kind of been asked to join in, but for whatever reason, all kinds of reasons, COVID, other things, it just didn't quite work out. And we just kind of honestly took advantage of the winter during COVID, and we're like, listen, there's no excuse now. We have time. We have, there was some question marks around, what our ability to pull permits and stuff would be, but we're like, let's just go for it. Let's just go all in. And the timing was pretty perfect. I think people were itching to get back out there, looking for something bigger. We had time to sort of build the anticipation. And honestly, we just, as we were working on it, and I got to mention Matt Charette because he does a ton for us in the background. He's not like an official founder per se, but he does a lot with, he helps us out a lot with working with potential sponsors and setting things up. And he's really done a lot for us. And I think he gets left out a lot. Normally I'm the silent partner, but I think he's been more so.
Yeah, definitely shout out Matt Charette. He's a name that definitely doesn't get mentioned enough for sure, as well as yours. I mean, I'm not knocking Jason or anything, but I've heard a lot of people say, it's Jason's trail. I'm gonna fish Jason's trail. It's not just Jason's trail. It's Adam Rourke's trail. It's Ken Wood's trail. It's Matt Charette's trail. You guys as a team have made the best thing to ever happen for the Northeast with kayak fishing. And we're all very thankful. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not the only one that firmly believes that. There's a lot of people that are really excited about this trail.
I'm glad to hear it. We have we have a lot of, we're really excited about it as well. We have some ideas for next season already. We're trying to get a jump on that. But we'll see how it goes. I've been really pleased with it. Done actually decent in the tournament so far. Looking like a little nervous about the next one, Wall and Pompack, but we'll see. But I do kind of, in a way, I enjoy the fact that Jason gets the recognition, because when the questions before the tournament, someone has these questions at 10 o'clock at night before tournament day, they don't go to me. So there are some benefits to being the silent partner. But yeah, I mean, Jason does a ton of work. It's definitely a group effort. But I just appreciate it, and I really appreciate just the support we've gotten from everybody. Just the willingness to give this trail a shot. There's a lot of options out there. We think this one is different and unique, and is catered specifically to the Northeast. And we really took the time to think about the other events that are going on. Yeah, exactly. I am usually fishing Jason's kayak. Yeah. We took the time to really think about, there's so many options out there, but what is missing? Like, what are some of these, it's not to pick on any of them, but like, what are they doing wrong, or what could they be doing better? Or what's like a glaring gap in what they're offering? And so we were just talking about it, and between the group of us, we're like, listen, we don't want there to be any mystery about money. We're not doing this for money. Like, we're doing this to grow the sport. We're doing this for the Northeast. And it sounds cliche and it sounds like marketing, but it's like the most honest intention that we have. And it's the truth. And we show where our money goes. I think our payout is 95% of all the money we take in. And the only reason we keep 5%, I was on Dark Waters, I think in the early spring, and there was like a comment on there about, where's the other 5% going? And it's like, well, where do these banners come from? Where do, we pay our judges,
let me just say, Adam, 5% is literally nothing. I was fortunate enough to place third at the Messalonsky Trail, and the payout was phenomenal. I've never received that much money in third place. Like, I don't. So whoever has any gripe about you guys taking 5% needs to go to these other bigger trails, who have more overhead, but they do not pay out nearly as much.
Right. And it's, we just tried to be honest and upfront. So there's no mystery. And it's like, if nothing else, people can't say we didn't tell them. And we have been really lucky to have the support of Three Bells and all of our sponsors. Dakota Lithium, Bixby is donating like motors, Savior Outdoors. I shouldn't have started listing them because now I got to remember them all. Catch is supporting us. There's another one I'm missing. Oh boy. But they've all been so great. Like Three Bells has been so generous to us, and that's one of if not my favorite kayak shop as it is. I got my Hobie from there when I was in a Hobie. I got my first Bonafide from there. And then when COVID hit, I wasn't able to go to a store, but they've been great. And, I've never been to a place. I shopped around before I went there, and that was the only place that like gave me a tour of their facilities. Like, here's where we rig stuff, and here's like our warehouse. And I remember sitting there and being like, can't believe this. I called a few places just to see if they had them in stock and all that stuff, and they couldn't be bothered. And like, I have one Hobie dealer. It's like 15 minutes away from me, and I drove 3 hours to Three Bells, and I would do it again in a heartbeat just for the customer service alone. So big shout out to them. But yeah, it's something I'm really excited about. I don't think I've been. Last year was really strange because we had a fishing season still, but it didn't feel like one, honestly, until Messalonsky. It was like the first time where, we could all chill out, hang out, have barbecue, whatever we were doing. And, it felt like a very impersonal season. I know we went to, I stayed with you guys at East West, and that one felt like a tournament again. But even like without having the ceremonies at the end and the get-togethers, it's weird. It felt more like the four of us were on a fishing trip versus like an actual tournament, right?
I mean, I can definitely say that the Messalonski that last year, that was like, it felt real during that versus where you're fishing for the day and then everybody scrams, you don't see anybody.
Yeah,
it was bizarre. This last year was definitely weird, and I'm happy it's back.
Yeah, I'm so excited, and I appreciate it a hell of a lot more. And one of the things that's been great is we're able to have our second event on Messalonski. Cayuga was a good one. Got to see people. It wasn't like Snow Pond where we're all together, but still, it was. We had a meetup at the end. It was just really great. It was refreshing, and it's good to be a part of it. And it's really, I've never run tournaments, certainly not at that scale, at the scale of EKF, but there's something cool about, doing all this work. And it just kind of feels like you're putting, you're just kind of doing like an administrative task, filling out permit applications and all that stuff. And then when you show up and you start, like when I got to Messalonski and I'm seeing all the trucks and things with kayaks on them, I'm like, holy crap, they're here because of something I had a part of. It's a badass feeling. And it's just cool because I really do. I really have a love for this sport, and the fact that I play a role in some way of growing it or just helping it keep going. I know I sound like a Lifetime movie right now, but it really is. It means a lot. And when people are willing to, take time off of work, put in their hard-earned money into trying something, it's just, I think it's a real testament to the kayak fishing community we have in the Northeast.
Yeah, definitely. Tournament directors don't get enough appreciation and thanks. They put in a lot of time behind the scenes. I know you've done it. I've seen other trails. Ken does it. He's another person that's always getting things done behind the scenes. I'm sure, Jason, any tournament director definitely needs a good pat on the back and some reward at the end of the season by, the people fishing their trail. At least that's what we try to do. But shout out to you guys, you tournament directors out there who don't get enough appreciation.
Yeah, you definitely don't. But still, hopefully it's you're doing it for the right reasons. But yeah,
this is funny. Thomas Lear says, if you haven't seen Since the Flood, cover Buried Alive. Buried Alive. Are you even New Hampshire hardcore?
Oh, Tom. That's my buddy Tom. He's from Milwaukee. He's actually who I visited before the East-West event last year. His brother was in Sense the Flood. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Sense the Flood. His brother's a tattoo artist who was in the band.
Very, very familiar. I'm from the South Shore.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. So also, he gave a big shout out to you. He said also Adam Rourke is not only a great fisherman, but a better man and friend.
Oh, thanks, Tom. That's so sweet. I'll see you in a month, Tom. Heading out to Milwaukee.
Yeah. Cool, man. So once again, definitely want to thank you for your partake in EKF. I'm so happy you guys are doing that. So let's talk about, I don't know, your upcoming tournament season. You traveling, you making your ways out to anything? I know we got Shane this weekend, but we talked previously. You didn't say you were going to make it, but what do we got?
Yeah.
What do we got for future?
So I think my next event is a Maniac Anglers event on Moose Pond. It's the week after the 4th, so the 9th, I want to say, maybe. It's that Saturday. It's a Maniac Anglers event that's close, but the one that there's two events that I've really been kind of doing homework on early, but it's the next two EKF events. The first one on Wallen Pawpack, which if you've taken a look at YouTube at all, at people that have fished there, which is kind of like it's a blessing and a curse to look at YouTube, right? Because, if somebody finds a spot with a hammer in them, you'll be there with everyone else. But I was just trying to get a feel for like, what's this place fish like? And it seems like it might be a little stingy. So I don't know. I mean, I've heard mixed things, but I'm looking forward to that. But then I had a realization earlier last week, like we have an event on Winnipesaukee. I live 15 minutes from Winnipesaukee. I had I kind of think I was like half awake in the morning where I realized, like, as a New Hampshire fisherman, I hardly ever fish New Hampshire. Like, I'm more often than not, I'm fishing in Maine or wherever else we have an event. I fun fish in local spots, but Winnipesaukee is not a place to go have like a casual Saturday on the water. In fact, like well, everyone knows, anyone who's fished there, it's not the most pleasant on the water, and the boaters out there are just, they're unique, man. I'll tell you, I used to think that all boaters are that way. And then the more I've traveled, it's like, no, it's it's kind of unique there and not in a good way. So I went there on Saturday, and I'm working on, well, now I thought I was hopefully going to find my strategy, but I think I did more water elimination than anything else. But I just I need to do a little better on what I would consider like a home game for me. So taking the time to try to figure that place out. But yeah, so I have a few of those coming up, and I don't know. I'm kind of in debate about the national championship and things like that this year, but we'll see. So it's a busy year. It's a busy year, but I try to keep the moderation going so I don't burn out. But also,
go to the national championship. Go there. Go to the national championship, man. Dude,
I do want redemption on Caddo because I figured them out too late on Caddo. But
come on, man. You don't get to fish cypress trees like that anywhere else.
Oh, you don't.
You know
that's
what I'm saying?
That's the appeal to me. The problem, or not the problem, the challenge is the drive. And I travel with Jason. He's a great co-pilot. Not going to bag on Jason. I felt bad. I did that a little at Messalonsky. Had a few drinks and turned it into a Jason roast. But it's not that it's bad. It's just the drive is so long. Because of the distance, it's so much more of an investment of time, gas, money. We did that drive a few years ago. There was 4 of us, 5 kayaks in my van, and it took some. And the van handled it fine. It took some. It ruptured like a bushing in the back of the rear axle that's never meant to be replaced or have to be replaced. It's a Toyota, it doesn't have to. And that was the worst day of my life repairing it. And I remember being like 5 freaking kayaks, 4 guys worth of gear. Yeah. So it's a long drive, but I think if I don't know, I'm 50-50 on it. If I do it, it'll be a lot different. But yeah, I would love to get back there. Cypress trees or something that if you have the opportunity to fish, it's so worth it. It's just crazy. And then fishing with gators around is something different too, which luckily I don't do very often. But yeah.
Fortunately, we don't have to. Also, large snakes and other creatures that are down there.
Oh, yeah. There was that guy he found a snake under his seat last year. Or not last year. Last time we were there for the national championship. I remember saying, going, geez, what would you – I'd be checking under my seat for the rest of my life after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Adam, I really hope I do get to see you guys down there. Hopefully, we can swing together where we stayed in, 2018. That just giant commune area with a whole bunch of Airbnbs that, access the water's right there. And a ton of us were all there. Hopefully we can make that happen again.
Oh, that'd be sweet. Yeah, maybe I'll have to reconsider. You might be convincing me. We'll see.
Dude, it's going to be worth it. All right. So we got a couple people asking about, Nate Goodwin wants to know about your setup, your kayak. What do you got going on there, Adam?
Sure. So I'm on the Bonafide Pro staff. So I run a Bonafide SS 127. It is an awesome kayak. I'm not just saying that because I'm on the pro staff, but I made the switch from a Hobie to the Bonafide SS 127. I was a little nervous because, everyone knows the pro anglers. They're like barges. I thought that was like the peak of stability in a kayak, and I don't have the greatest balance. It's gotten better over the years, but still I need something that's harder to tip. Jason Gardner got in one of his many trials with different kayaks. He got a Bonafide, and I got to try it out. And I still can't believe how stable it is compared to the Hobie. And so I started running with that. I bought a Torpedo for the back originally, which is really great. But my style of fishing, I tend to stand up more often than sit down. And so I started getting a little frustrated with having to sit down to reposition. So now I'm running the Motor Guide XI3, which is just perfect for me. It has the spot lock, the GPS, and then I have a 100 amp hour Dakota lithium. And it's just, effortless in terms of how to use it with the remote and all that stuff. And the, the battery. I can't say enough about those batteries. If you haven't been convinced about lithium ion yet, you really ought to, because I think that the most I've drained my battery so far this year is like 60%, down to 60% battery life. It's been like next to nothing. So it's really nice to be able to stand up and adjust, lock down in the wind, which is a huge advantage. I think that, I don't think it quite gets enough credit with the XI3, but being able to fish in the wind is just fantastic. So yeah, I'm running that. I have a Raymarine fish finder. But,
do you run a Bluetooth monitor on it? Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind? I'm curious.
I actually don't know. It's some Amazon brand I can't pronounce. Honestly, it's not like a name brand, and I actually think it might be a little messed up. I think it's meant for car batteries, so it's like telling me if the car will start type of thing, and I have to work at it to get the percentage. But the motor also will tell you.
Right.
I think it's at 50% or 30% or something like that, and it's never been anything but green. The Messalonsky event a couple of weeks ago. My first spot on that event was a mile and a half away. So I made that run first thing in the morning, worked my way back, and then a few other places, and that was still green at the end of the day, it was honestly, it's just great. And that's what I like in a setup. I don't want to have to think about that. I don't want to be like, all right, I'll make my move halfway through the day at like half speed. Like at that point, halfway through the day, nothing's half speed, when it comes to making a move. So it's been really excellent. Yeah. And I have the Raymarine Element fish finder, the 7-inch one, which, I don't have a ton of preferences in fish finders, but the Raymarine kind of, in my opinion, just offers like the most all-in-one you can get. I think they actually stopped making freshwater fish finders. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, I'm a big fan of it, and just like the screen and the color, but I'm not very picky on that. I don't get too into my electronics. I probably should more sometimes, but like when I'm fishing deep, it's not my strength, but working on it.
Cool, man. So how about, let's talk gear. Reels, rods. What do you got preferences, Adam?
Yeah, so I last year made the switch to all Shimano. With the exception of my spinning, I don't have many spinning reels. I have two, but I use all Shimano baitcasters. Last year I was running the SLX DCs, and this year, as supply allows, because we have a shortage, I've been upgrading to Corrado DCs. And they've just been fantastic. I hear all the jokes like DCs are like baitcasters for training wheels. I mean, whatever. Like, so be it, because I'm not backlashing, and fishing in the wind is pretty effortless. So, yeah, they've been badass. For rods, I run mostly the same. I have some. I think it's a brand. I don't know if it's a brand anymore, but I bought them last year. It's a company called Ritual Angling. They make like a 7.3 medium heavy that I run like 4 of those. I try to have duplicate setups of the same gear ratio and same rod for a lot of my setups. So if one goes down, snap a line, rat's nest, whatever, I can easily switch. So I have some of those, and I mix up gear ratios on a few, like my, like my jigging setups and stuff. I tend to use like a 7.4 instead of an 8, because sometimes the 8's just too fast. But like the 8.2 to 1, I think it is, I use on my topwater, like for throwing a spook and walking a spook and stuff. It's just helps you keep up with it, especially if there's any chop on the water. So I mix it up. Yeah. But I know we were talking about this earlier, but we didn't want to spoil it. But I do need a new drop shot rod. I need potentially even a new drop shot reel. So any recommendations you have for a good drop shot rod, length, action, not necessarily your baits, unless you want to spill that here, but just mostly a setup, because it's something that I'm like midway confident with. Wouldn't say super confident. Sometimes they throw a drop shot and I'm like, I'm just throwing a dart in a freaking airplane hangar here, but got to work on it.
So if you haven't seen, I actually, from my IG story, I broke my favorite drop shot rod of all time, man. I'm really sad about it. I used a medium, fast action. It was a Skeet Reese Wright McGill rod. It wasn't one of the cheap ones that you can get at Dick's or whatever. It was the higher end version of those rods. And I've had it for about 4 years. I absolutely loved it. It was an incredible rod. I caught a lot of fish on that rod. The rod won me a lot of money. And for some reason, Father's Day, man, I was catching a fish, or I was trying to catch to show my son. He actually got to see his first largemouth bass ever, which was cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. He got to touch it. He's yelling, fishy, fishy. It was fantastic. But anyways, I was casting out, and I something bit. I set the hook, and about 8 inches, 10 inches down, the rod just snapped. And I'm like, no. So, I mean, that was sad Father's Day. At the same time, it was a great one. But I've been eyeing I'm a Daiwa guy. I like Daiwas. I love their reels, love their rods. I have a bunch of their Tattoo XT rods. They're at low price point. It's like 100 to 115, 120, but they're extremely rods, really comfortable reel seats. That's a selling deal to me. I hate those little screw cap
friggin'
Yeah.
I mean, you're on the water all day. It's raining. Your fingers are waterlogged. You're holding on to that. It's uncomfortable. Whatever. I'm picky about it. So I love the President XTs. So I was like, you know what? I did just get a check from Mesalonsky. I'm gonna splurge and I'm gonna get the Tattoo Elite, the AGS. So they're the Tattoo Elite rods with the air guide system. And the more I think about it, the more and more I'm nervous about it. But it's a 7'1", 7'1" rod, medium fast action, with carbon fiber rod guides. They're crazy. It's a crazy light rod, extremely well balanced, really comfortable. But I'm taking it. Yeah, dude, it comes with like a manual. It says things not to do. It says don't make if you're using braid, don't use a leader longer than 3 feet. Try not to have the knot go through the guides. But like, so
that's a lot.
I don't know if I just wasted a lot of money, but we'll see. I'm going to check it out tomorrow. So I mean, I really enjoyed their other rod, so why not go balls out? It's the Brent Ayler design rod. I enjoy the way he fishes, and so I gave it a shot. But yeah, man, it's worth checking out.
Check it out. Yeah.
Or just get so you don't even have to get the AGS one, which I probably shouldn't have done because I'm in a kayak and I beat my equipment up.
I was gonna say I beat my rods up, so if like I have like a mental price point, but that's never really stopped me before. But still, I'm like, I always try to think of that when I upgrade anything. Like, am I gonna be heartbroken when this breaks? I think about that with my reels, my rods, anything. Like, am I gonna be heartbroken if something happens to this, or will I be able to replace it? And it's like I try to find a line somewhere. I say that, but I've been upgrading my stuff nonstop for 15 years. Yeah. It's not going to stop. So rods, I try to keep it around under 200, but I don't know.
So the Elite without the AGS or the air guide system, that the crazy guides, it is sub 200. So that's definitely worth checking out. Same blank, I believe. So I mean.
Carbon fiber, that is nuts,
dude. They're crazy. I'm scared. I know Joe DiDeo. He's had a couple of those rods, and he says that guy beats the living shit.
I was gonna say that's a good sign if he has them.
Yeah,
like if he's able to keep them around, that's a good sign.
No, he's broken a couple. That's the thing. But he also is extremely hard, and he's a fast angler. He's got casting left and right motor, but maybe it's not the fit for him. But I'm gonna baby this thing, and I can't wait to get a line wet and get a fish on it tomorrow. I'll let you know how it is.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
But for reels, I mean, you can get expensive reels and they'll last forever. The reels are basically almost bulletproof if you take good care of them and maintain them. But you can drop them breaking or poke them into a car door, the rod tip breaking on.
That's why I started with lightning rods back in the day, just because the first time I went out on a bass boat tournament, live well, boom, right on top of a rod. I'm like, well, learn that lesson. And thankfully, it was I think lightning rods at the time, I think they're still like $35. This is before the shocks were a thing. So I was like, it's not the end of the world. But nowadays, as I start to increase, the price point on my stuff, it's like, I just want to take a little bit better care of it. But either way, like in a kayak, with like, I use a black pack and all that stuff. They get moved around, even if they're like securely in a rod holder, when the water's choppy, like everything takes bumps, and it's over time, it does wear stuff out. But if you get a good few years out of things, I think it's fine, especially with the amount of times that, people, anglers like you and I, who travel a lot, we put a lot of, we put our gear through a lot. So if it can hold up a few years, I think it's a worthy investment. But, I just like to experiment, try things out. And not that like people are banging my door down, but, like rod and reel sponsors, I think are things I'm going to avoid just in general, because I want to be able to try something. I want to be able to jump ship to something that works. Now, if somebody came to me with an offer, I don't want to make it sound like I'm like a, too much of a high and mighty guy here, but I like having flexibility with trying things, because you think you have something you like and you think it's the best, but until and I don't want to feel like I want to try that new dial. I've wanted to try a Tatula for a long time, but I like to keep everything the same. So if I try one and I really like it. It becomes a whole ordeal where I'm turning things over. So I'm going to give the Shimano's a couple years, and then we'll see how that goes. But, now they're like investing in gold because you get them and, they can't find them anywhere else. So it might be just a good investment down the road.
Yeah, right. Oh, man. But, I mean, it does also suck buying this nicer gear just because, like you said, we're rough on our gear. We're kayaks, we're constantly traveling. Like I have a rod tube. I have an 8-inch rod tube that I don't even want to use anymore just because I've broken a couple rods, the vibration. And if you're not using cases, I don't have cases for all my reels, and I have nicer reels now. They're constantly getting beat up in there. So I'm probably going to, it's worth the investment. Get one of those Yakima topwater boxes and throw that on my truck.
I have a Yakima, I think it's called a rocket box on mine, and it will fit rods. But like you're saying with rod tubes, though, I still put them in the van, inside the van, strapped up like Ken does, like the straps across the handles. And it's just because they don't move. Like it sounds silly, but if you just close the sun visor on the passenger side with the rod tips in it, they don't move. And I used my rods. I had a rod tube a couple years ago, and I used it. And I started pulling my reels out, and I'm like seeing all the scuffs and just from like bumping into each other. And now I just like that's too much money on sitting here. I can't do that. I can't do it, even if I haven't broken anything, thankfully. But I mean, it's not crazy to think that on a 7-hour plus road trip, that's just going to wear something out, or even like your line, and then. Like you said, if you put reel covers on, that shit just takes forever. And sometimes at the end of the day, you're ready to just go, especially when you're facing a long drive home. So.
That or you're jumping spots. I mean, you want to get things quick, go. You don't even load up properly. And next thing you know, you have a $200 rod out of commission, or a reel that's just it looks like shit, like because it's so beat up.
Yeah, that's one project I still have. Like that's one of the things I love about fishing too, is I'm like a DIY guy. I do everything myself. So I'm always working on something. I welded my trailer this year, taught myself how to weld. And I'm going to, I think they take that rocket box and put some of those like just foam rod holders in there. So if I do put them in there, they're not bouncing around, just something to keep them secure. I just rigged it up with lights. So Jason got a new On the Water Innovations trailer, which is fantastic. So it's no jab at them, but I basically looked at that trailer and was like, okay, I'm going to do that on my trailer. Cause I have Jason's not most recent, but one of Jason's hand-me-down trailers that I bought from him. And it's practically, when he got it, it was a brand new jet ski trailer for like next to nothing down south. So I just been building on that and taking on, I just like to do things myself, which is a blessing and a curse because you know how to do it, but that's how you end up as Jason Gardner's pit crew. Because he doesn't learn how to do anything. So, but I really enjoy it. I got a Dakota Lithium in that box. So I have like the rigging lights on the kayak and the remote controlled. It's a pretty sweet setup. I'm pretty happy with it, but I'd like to be able to get my rods in there as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've heard good things and bad things about the Yakima topwater. I mean, I might just bite the bullet.
People say, I've heard people say they feel cheap, but I think it's just because they're lightweight. They're going to be on a trailer or a car, and I assume, I shouldn't necessarily, but I assume Yakima has tested the shit out of that thing. And, there's always user error. It's always hard to tell when you hear from people, right? Because you don't know what they were doing with it, how they were putting it on there. So it's really tough to tell. But those last I checked were hard to find at the moment too.
Great.
I mean, everything is. I think that's just the theme of what I'm going for today during this, I guess. Everything's hard to find.
Yeah, that and then the price of lumber is through the goddamn roof. I can't do anything to my house.
I got to do my roof in the fall, and I'm hoping something happens. Something drives the price back to earth.
I haven't even taken a look at the price of shingles. Great. I've had to do my roof for the last year and a half. So
yeah, hey, me too. We're alike in that way. I'll do it in the fall. I'll do it in the spring. And I won't do it in the summer because it's too hot and fishing. So
cool. So Chris Pendergast, he actually says he throws his Thule box with a mattress pad on the inside. That's actually smart.
That is very smart. Hey, good call, Chris. He has Jason's other trailer. We're just like the Jason's secondhand crew.
Look at this. Now we got people stealing ideas for trailers. I mean, you can only be so original, right? It needs racks and bunks. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a copyright on the idea. It's pretty basic. And, you know, I just know it's pretty solid. The welds don't look pretty. They're certainly not Denny's welds, but they hold.
Yeah, you're not you may be a professional. I don't know. I haven't seen your welds, but
no, I'm not.
They get the job done, right?
They get the job done. I'm a desk worker. I work at a college. So, you know, I try to be handy with stuff. I work on my own car, but it takes time to develop that stuff. So, but the welding, I've done it once. I've been asked to do it a couple times since, and I'm like, I don't trust myself to weld for anyone else. So sorry. Normally I like to help, but
I mean, that makes sense because if you're welding a trailer, you're potentially having thousands of dollars on your trailer or somebody else's trailer that you welded, and then next thing you know, the thing folds in half or something. I get it. I respect that.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. So like I mentioned earlier, I work on Jason's kayaks and I rig it up, and it's something I really like to do. I've gotten better at it over the years, but people keep saying like, oh, you should do this. You should do this full time, not full time, but you should like offer a service to do this. But I'm like, you know, I can't think of a more awkward situation than like drilling a hole in someone's kayak in the wrong spot. And then just, you know, like, what do we do? You know, and not everybody, like I help Jason with the understanding that I'm just helping you out. If I screw something up, I'm not replacing it. Like if I crack the hull of your kayak, I'm really sorry, but I was trying my best. Like when you start looking for money for that stuff, it just takes on a whole different, you know, feel. When you mess something up, put something in the wrong place. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff that there's not a lot of things that you can't like undo or fix these days with where the technology's gone, but it's just a nerve-wracking idea that you take somebody's kayak and split it or whatever, mess it up somehow.
Yeah, like Nate Shagnon and my fiance's little cousin, I recently rigged some stuff up on their kayak, and you got to let them know for sure, like, hey man, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. If something goes wrong, I'm sorry, dude.
Yeah, really sorry.
Yeah. Listen, it worked on mine. I don't know. Hopefully
exactly right. Like it's easier to experiment on your own for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I got this really good sealant. So if anything happens, let me know. I'll let you borrow it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. I got some awesome, crazy roof sealant that might. So if you ever need any, let me know.
Hopefully I don't, but that's a good thing to know.
Yeah. Yeah. So Nate Goodwin threw in the question. Good question. Fishing strengths and weaknesses, Adam.
Oh, weaknesses is definitely deep fishing. I say deep. I would say anything deeper than 20 feet. I know what to look for, but the problem is confidence with it, right? I'll be fishing something that I'm pretty sure is out there. I need to do more of it when I'm not tournament fishing. When you're tournament fishing, it's easy to kind of play that head game of, you know, am I wasting my time? It all depends on the situation. But when I'm fishing a tournament, you're not relaxed enough to be like, just give it time to let it work, to let yourself figure it out, you know, like you do with anything else, really. And so because it's deeper too, it just feels like the lake just suddenly, in my mind, just gets 10,000 times bigger, right? Like I could be throwing anywhere, you know. So that is definitely my weakness. I would say my strength, I wouldn't say fishing shallow. I would say like the in-between. So the 7 to 12 foot range is really where I do well. But also over the years, I've gotten really dialed in with like finesse style fishing. So obviously like Ned's, but I think I've told you about it, but I have like a slight variation on the Ned that I thought I created. I did not, so I'm not going to say I don't even know what it's called, but somebody else has been doing it before. But I have found basically it's a weedless Ned, but it's a little more to it than that. And I've just gotten really dialed in at fishing that at various depths with different weights, depending on the style that I'm fishing. But I've had a crazy amount of luck. Not luck, but I've just had a lot of success with it. And so basically what I've done is taken just the baits that I typically use, shrink them down a little bit, and just fish them way slower than I ever have before, which has taken a long time for me to get okay with. Because before I was like fast and the furious Texas rig Senko guy. Like if you don't have a bite within 3 seconds, reel it in and try again. So I've just gotten a lot better at really breaking down like the sort of, I don't know if I would call it mid zone, but the 7 to 12 foot range, and really analyzing the bottom and the structure around it, which honestly is what I need to do in deeper water. But for some reason, doesn't work in my head. So need to get better at that.
Grass or structure?
Grass.
Cool.
It's a tough pick. Because I like Messalonsky is more like structure for me. Well, I mean, there's a little bit of everything there, but primarily what I was fishing was structure. But but I definitely do like grass though. I love fishing through that stuff. I hate like fishing anything that isn't weedless through it, but fish. I feel like you tend to find the bigger ones in the grass. And if they're not big, they feel big because they're pulling a bunch of grass with it. So I enjoy it.
Cool. So what are your top 3 finesse baits or finesse presentations? You don't have to dig into the baits if you don't want to. And your top 3 power fishing. So, bait casting, hucking and winding.
Yeah. So the finesse stuff, I would definitely say a Ned rig. So I don't know if this counts as 2, but the Ned rig, the regular sort of 3-inch Ned rig. And then I also have become and almost exclusively changed to the big TRD, it is the big TRD. They have like a super TRD. I don't know if you saw this thing yet. It's
the
ridiculous.
TRD, man.
Yeah.
That thing's great.
I'm sure it's great, but I looked at that. I go, this thing, it almost looks like a spoof, but I am going to try it. And then the other one I would say is a drop shot. I'm not the most confident with it, but I do like it. And for the power fishing stuff, I am a pretty devout chatterbait fisherman. I just caught my first fish this year with a jackhammer, so I'm not going to be like, oh, jackhammer all the way. I have I do like the Z-Man stuff. I have a person who makes me custom chatterbaits that I've been a big fan of for years. I've done really well with them. Probably should shout him out, but I don't really want to. I could. So it's a guy on Facebook. I haven't ordered from him for a couple of years, so if he's no longer doing it, I promise I'm not making it up. It's called Sparta Jigs, Sparta. It's just a guy, I believe, in Tennessee who makes them. Super affordable. And the ones that I got have like a very similar action to a jackhammer. The blade shape is a little different, but it has like the same sort of hitting the jig head style. And I've just caught a ton of fish on that thing. I have like expanded my collection to having jackhammers. I use I'm gonna sound like Jason here in a second, but I order my jackhammers straight from Japan. So there's a couple colors over there that you can't get here. They're also a little cheaper straight from Japan, which is funny. Haven't ordered those in a little bit thanks to COVID. But
even with shipping?
Yeah. And they take – so the first time I ordered, it was a little nerve-wracking. I only ordered like 5 just in case. I'm like, I just don't – in case this is a scam because the website looks sketchy. It's poorly translated English, but it's legit. And you can also get the JDM Shimano reels, the Daiwa reels on that site. This is going to sound even more of a scam. It's called like Japan Lure Shop. If you just type in Japan Lure Shop on Google, you will find it. And it will look 100% like a scam. So I'm just warning everybody now. But the last I checked, though, they had to like pull back on shipping to the U.S. a little bit. I don't know if that was COVID related or not. But so I fished that. The other things that I fish, let me think. I used to fish jigs a lot in my early bass boat days, and I got back into it over the past couple of years. So I'd definitely say jig. Mostly football head jigs, although I flip a football head jig, which I think I'm doing wrong. I mean, I don't know if it's doing it wrong, but it works for me, so I do that. I've honestly, I know there's difference in the jig head shapes, but I haven't noticed difference in terms of like how a football head gets around structure or grass compared to the flipping jigs. I like to vary the size a little bit depending on the water. Sometimes I'm a big fan of little baits, and I know a lot of folks feel like little baits don't catch big fish, and just keep thinking that, please, so you don't mess with my style, because it's definitely not true all the time. You can definitely catch little fish, and if you're on one of Pasaki, you're going to catch a shit ton of rock bass. But I've really kind of shrunk down the baits that I use. But my other favorite bait, which is kind of like a jig, I think I've talked about these with you. I'm not sure, but the G crack. What the heck is it?
So you got the bellows gill.
Yes. The weirdest looking thing.
Dude, the weirdest texture. It's the most strange plastic I've ever felt.
and it smells weird, dude.
It smells so
I don't
bad.
even. It's like coffee and ass. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. It is like, but to me, it's like it stinks for me, but feels perfect for a fish. I don't know, but I've caught some good fish. Just started using them this year. I saw them online. Not online. I was just perusing YouTube before work one morning, and the way that they're designed, the ribs, like the action on them is insane. Like they're able to move so much. I can't say that's the reason why or why not. I've been catching fish on them, but they're really great, and you can rig them up to throw them through the weeds. Like they can handle it, and they're pretty durable. Yeah, they do stink. And like I have one of those KVD bags to keep my soft plastics in, and that thing I'm pretty sure permanently stinks. But it's worth it. They're a little pricey, but they're pretty durable. And I've been a big fan of them so far. So I'll put that one up there for this year. It'll probably change next year or next week. But yeah, that's my top 3.
Yeah, I definitely want to check out the G-Crack. Have you seen the boa bab hogs? So they're like creature bait. Yeah. I'm taking some interest in those. I definitely really like the G-Crack stuff. I mean, that plastic is weird. They got a lot of cool stuff. The bellows gill, bellows craw, bellows stick.
Yeah, it's just different, right? Like I feel like so much of new products these days are like the same thing as another company's with like a slightly different, tail or centerpiece, whatever. I mean, honestly, like Senkos, when people come up with their new Senkos, it's like, there's nothing new about that Senko. Maybe the formula, but honestly, Senko fishing just it's not like that type, in my opinion. Like Senko, I think the color matters, but in terms of like shape, like, our shape is totally different. I don't think that makes too much of a difference, but something like what they're doing, what G-Crack is doing, like to me, that their design is just totally different, where they have like the center structure, but the rest is just all sort of like loose, I don't know, fin-like looking things. And it just seems
the ribbing is bizarre. Yeah, definitely. And I know like for a lot of the areas that I hear, the bass munch on bluegill all day long. Yeah. And they have one of the best unique bluegill profiled soft plastics I've ever seen. I mean, you could get legit like a bluegill soft plastic, but this is not a bluegill soft plastic. It's profiled, but then with crazy ribbing that displaces so much water. Like if you haven't had your hands on them or checked them out, I recommend checking them out. Well, like they are a little pricey, but so aren't the better things in life.
To me, when I first saw them, I was like, the way that they're designed to have so much action, I was just thinking about like a fish, like you flip the bait somewhere and you have that fish that's kind of looking at it but isn't sure, and you don't always know it, right? Like depending on the conditions, but that bait moves itself. Like that just sitting there, it takes like next to nothing to move that bait. And so in my mind, I was like, these things are worth a shot. So I just bit the bullet. I bought like a variety pack, so to speak, from Tackle Warehouse. And I've just been super impressed. The scent is something that I've wanted to get into this year, and thanks to like getting some of those scent sticks, I've never used those before, but I haven't had to thanks to those baits. They already have it with them, so I don't know what it is that's working about them, but it is working. It's pretty cool. But yeah, the jackhammer. To go back to the jackhammer, though, I got to give it credit. I caught my big fish on Cayuga with it, so I got to give the jackhammer some credit. That was like my second or third fish with the jackhammer, so I'm kind of a believer, but I don't want to spend my life savings on more of them. So kind of trying to temper it a little bit.
Definitely, man. What about the trailer for your bladed jigs?
I use a Strike King Rage Tail. It's a 3.75 inch swim bait tail. So it's a swim bait, just their swim baits. I throw it on there pretty exclusively, like pretty religiously. I mix up the color depending on the color of the chatterbait, but otherwise I use only that. I've tried a few others that honestly look identical. I think Eco Tungsten makes one that's very similar, at least in appearance, but I just keep buying the Strike King ones. They're a little bit more expensive, but I guess it's a superstition or something. I just won't mess with it. I won't fix it if it's not broken, but I've been really intrigued by some of the other baits I'm seeing and hearing people use. Like I think I heard Nate talk about using like a craw, and I don't know why, but it's craw or something to that sort.
Scorpion. Some creature. It's a friggin' scorpion.
Dude, I saw that the other day, and I'm like, I can't help it. I think of Savage Gear every year. They're gonna put out like a rubber ducky or whatever. I'm like, a freaking scorpion. But hey, I say that if it works, more power to him. But like, that's what he was talking about using, and I was like, that's interesting. But
hey, confidence, right? Confidence carries.
Hey, Nate's having a hell of a year. I will not judge anything that he does. I like Nate. He's a good dude. So I don't have anything negative to say about Nate.
I'm gonna judge his ass and give shit about those stupid things all the time. But hey, man, he's promoting the hell out of him. He's doing well with them. And they're selling like hotcakes for some odd reason.
Because of him.
Yeah.
He's the Scorpion guy.
The Scorpion King, you know. Good movie reference.
Awesome.
But here's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. I forgot where I heard the original discussion, but it made perfect sense to me. Rod power and being in a kayak. So we're not in big boats. We're not fishing from shore. If you catch a big fish in a big boat and you set that hook, it's not going to move the big boat nearly as much as a kayak. Like you'll watch some videos where you'll see a guy flip and then set the hook in the kayaks. That will not happen in a big boat. So a lot of kayak guys have been going up in the power of their rods, you know, from a medium heavy to a heavy fast action, whatever. Where do you stand on that? Especially say if you're throwing fluoro or braid, what's your preference with that? Because if I were to throw a medium heavy rod on a big boat with fluoro, I'm going to throw a heavy rod fast action with maybe a little bit stronger fluoro just because I'm in a kayak.
Interesting. I've actually done the opposite. I don't know that I've ever had that problem, to be honest. And I think part of it is, I think the motor guide plays a big role in that, because if I have it on a little bit, the fish don't pull me as much. I actually recently moved to a medium for a couple of my rods, for a couple of my, not my jig rod, but some of my, I use mostly bait casters. So like hucking a Ned rig or a variety of a Ned rig on a bait caster, it works out a little better with a medium. But I do, other than those, I have like 2 mediums for like soft plastics, but otherwise I have all medium heavies on everything. So I don't know if that's why it hasn't been much of an issue for me, but I can't use a heavy action rod either. It feels, I need a little bit more, you know what I mean? I don't feel like I can work the bait as well. I have one, it could be because it's not a good one, but I usually like to stick in the medium heavy range and to medium, but yeah, I've never actually dealt with that too much, but I could see how it could be. And part of the reason I may not have an issue is I stand almost all day. Like unless I'm moving, I stand pretty much all day, or unless like Mesolonsky gets angry or other places. But for the most part, I'm standing up, so it's not too much of an issue for me that I've experienced. I probably just jinxed myself, but it usually isn't an issue.
I gotcha. Whatever works for you realistically, right? But for me, I just figured out, upsizing the rods, especially, flipping a Texas rig, Mag Fatty Z in a bunch of grass or pads, just having that extra power to really to get them out of there, or just line, especially if it's a big grass line, I can, shoot out 50 feet. And I know that when I go set that hook, my kayak's not going to move forward or left or right or whatever.
Yeah, you got me thinking about it now for sure. I thought I was just looking for one rod, but I might have to grab more than one.
I'm not saying go change out every single rod.
No. I'm going to try one, if anything.
Yeah.
I have like the one heavy rod I have is a telescoping Bass Pro Shop thing.
The Tourney Pro.
It is. I wasn't going to say it because it's like the cheapest one.
Dude, I have one. Well, I don't use it anymore, but I did use it for a couple of years.
The telescoping one?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
It was heavy as shit.
It is. Okay. So, all right. So I'm glad. All right. Maybe I'll try a different one, but I have it and I actually use it. So I have one of those big frogs built by Mr. Tightlines. I'm not sure if you've seen those. The rats. Sorry, not a frog, the rats. And it's exclusively for that now, just because of throwing something that big. And that only comes out for special occasions, night fishing primarily. But I need to get like a better one. It's also like a 7.6, which is too big for like a typical fishing tournament for me. I need to get like a heavy action 7.3 or so. I think that's like my sweet spot, 7.3, 7.1. I'll have to try it out.
I gotcha. I mean, personally, I have a couple 7.6s that I really enjoy, mainly for flipping grass and pads and all that other stuff. So I like actually having that little bit of extra length just for longer pitches but it's definitely,
you're giving me some stuff to think about, John.
It's stuff that I don't know.
But you do it well. So if it's working for you, I'm interested. All right, I'll check them out.
But this is where the quality of the rod seat comes into play for me, because if I'm I'm palming a bait caster all day, making constant flips, my fingers are going to be sitting on that stupid ass screw lock that just bothers the shit out of me. So, I mean, I know Iowa Tatula XT, $100 to $120 price range, not too bad. The heavy is kind of a softer heavy, which I really like because it's got that bend in it. And especially I think in being a kayak, that's important because you're fighting a fish and you're making sure that fish is that parabolic bend, but as well as having that backbone to get fish out. So finding a rod like that's cool.
I'm going to check it out. I'm going to check out those Daiwas.
Definitely.
A couple. The carbon fiber might be too set.
No, I'll experiment with what I got now. I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah,
I pray to God I don't pop those eyelets out. But they're also the XTs, the Elite XTs, the Tatula XTs rather. They're really low, which is important to me, especially make a constant repetitive flip all day long. And it's definitely worth a check. Check them out.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm probably going to order a couple. Maybe a heavy, maybe a drop shot rod. Give it a shot.
Yeah, spend some money.
I don't have any other ideas. I go on, Bass Pro, whatever website I'm on that day. I'll be looking, and it's like, and I don't know what I'm looking for. You know what I mean? So none of them are appealing. Because it's like they look nice, but like, what are they for?
Here's another thing to take into consideration that I've started to a lot. I used to on everything, but I didn't realize that, if you're throwing braid on a medium heavy, you set that hook, it's going to be way fiercer if you're throwing fluoro or I don't throw mono. Some people like mono, whatever.
I use P-line fluoro clear. That's become my favorite stuff. My go-to.
Yeah, you and a couple other people have said that the castability, the stretch is good as was it being fluoro coated.
When I was broke in college fishing, the trick that I got myself into is I bought all medium heavy rods, like across the board. I just got all the same one. Honestly, I didn't know much about them back then, but when I started fishing chatterbaits with it, the rods were like too stiff. So I used the mono to counteract the stiffness of the rod because the mono had forgiveness. So it was like a poor man trick that I taught myself over the years that I just within the past 2 years got away from for chatterbaits. And I don't mean poor man's. It was just I couldn't afford fluorocarbon in college, and I didn't have if I bought the fluorocarbon, I had to buy the rod to go with it that would complement it. And so I just used monofilament to kind of counterbalance the lack of the bend in the rod with the fluoro, and it worked out for a really long time. But eventually, I got sick of dealing with straight mono. So the fluoro clear from P-line has just been my go-to. Not a sponsor, nothing. I buy the big spools of it, and I put it on, my main lineup, so to speak. I have a few other specialties, but for the most part, I'm running 15-pound P-line fluoro clear. Had no issues with it. So, and it's pretty decently priced.
P-line is very well priced, honestly, compared to some of the other stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like Seagar, they have some good price. The Invezex is average. When you get into the Tatsu, which gets crazy, $40 for 100, 150, 180 yards or whatever.
I always hear about Seagar, and I heard that they have special flipping braid, and it's interesting because I kind of revert back to my 21-year-old self a lot when it comes to hearing about new fishing stuff. Because I'll kind of go back to being a poor college kid, and I'm not saying I have a ton of money now, but it's not like I work now, so full time, so it's not like I have to penny pinch everything. But when I hear about this flipping line, and then I see it's a, because I think for the regular spools are really small, they're more for I don't know, they're 150 yards, but they're $40, and I'm like, what is that? What could be different here? And then I watched the video the other day, and people are swearing by it, and I'm like, no kidding.
So I used to use for my fluoro, I used to use Seagar. I really, really, really enjoyed it. And for lighting stuff and leaders, I use the Tatsu. But anyways, I think Sunline or something. Sunline was on sale. For some reason I bought it. I bought the Sunline Sniper for a spinnerbait rod.
And I was second cast. I was like, wow, this is smooth. This is supple. This is great. So then I started training all my fluoro reels to Sunline. And I absolutely love it. So now my heavier stuff, my heavy rods that I, flip plastics and stuff like that, Sunline has a flippin' fluoro. And it's actually clear, and then I think it's like 1 or 18 or 1 foot increments of clear, and then it has like the yellow, high vis yellow, clear yellow, because
that's kind of sweet.
A lot of the times when you're flipping in grass and it becomes monotonous and you haven't got a bite in a while, you can see that line. It helps a lot, especially if there's a sun glare or something. It helps a lot with seeing your bait move, which can potentially, more hookups, more fish in the boat.
Yeah, but we've all had those days when the bite cuts off, and you almost forget what it's like to feel a fish. And so to see your line move is a huge advantage, because it's like it just takes the questioning out of it. I'm going to check that out. Jeez, John, you ought to be a salesman.
It's cool. I like it. I have had zero issues with it. It casts extremely well. So, I mean, it's worth. But for me, Sunline has definitely trumped essentially the fluorocarbon corner. So,
wow.
But the Seaguar stuff was great. Don't get me wrong. I feel like but I'll tell you what, the Seaguar Smackdown, the braid is, in my personal opinion, is my favorite braid. Whether I'm using the high vis green for my spinning reels or I'm using the Smackdown, like the stealth gray, for like a frog rod or some sort of, if I'm flipping grass, heavy grass, punching rod. It's just,
I'm a big fan of the gray. I've changed over to gray over the years because it doesn't run as much as a lot of the greens do. It's the green. I had some braid. I think it was not Proline. What's it called? Powerline. The green Powerline. That stuff ran all over me, man. Like I was wearing like a light colored Columbia shirt, and it looked like I got shot with a paintball by the end of the day. I was like, "Yep, that was the last time with this." So
yeah, Power Pro's old. They're V2, so I like to try shit out, man. I'm constantly saying
it's good. You don't know what you're missing.
Right, exactly. Their V2, their Power Pro V2 braid is actually really slick and really nice. It's just kind of more stiff than the Smackdown that I'm using now. Also, Sunline has, it's called like X Plasma. I have it on one of my spinning reels right now. It's been really smooth, really great. Zero wind knot so far, and I've had it on for a couple months. So
wow.
so far, Sunline and Seaguar are in my books the only lines that I'll use. But
have to give them a shot.
That might change in the future.
Yeah, we'll see if they can dethrone the P-line. I've been, I try to, like, one of my problems is I get into things that work, but I don't change because they're not broken. But I need to explore a little bit more before I kind of just like something, buy a bulk spool. It's like, just try it out before, try a couple others. So I'm going to have to do that.
Yeah, definitely. It's worth it's so hard. There's so much stuff. The market is so flooded with different products that do the same shit. Literally, they look the same, but it's just figuring out maybe that plastic is slightly different, that it'll work in your favor depending on how you fish. So, I mean, that's one thing. Just like fishing, you're constantly on the water learning. You're literally constantly at Bass Pro or at a tackle store, hopefully better than Bass Pro, because Bass Pro sucks.
Lately, I used to do Bass Pro stuff. I used to do seminars at Bass Pro, man. It was, you take something you like and you go and like try to volunteer for them. And yeah, there's no better way to ruin a store for yourself than to go and like, they wanted me on their, I shouldn't say too much, but I was doing seminars and stuff there. And then when they merged with Cabela's, they wanted me to have personal liability insurance. But I'd have to pay for that. And I don't get paid to go do seminars. So I'm like, I'm not going to pay to be here, like, unless I'm buying stuff. So I eventually stopped doing that. But man, I used to have like this hope in my head that Bass Pro and working there was different than like working at Walmart. It's not. It's not. And it was a sad day when I realized that. So,
I mean, even their like Johnny Morris Carbon Light rods, they're pretty good rods.
Yeah, I got a couple.
Yeah. I mean, I ain't got nothing against them. But also they're Johnny Morris, they're platinum reels. They're literally made by Luz. So I would just buy a Luz reel.
Yeah.
You don't have to deal with Bass Pro. You can just buy a Luz reel.
They had a couple that were made by Daiwa, I think, in the previous years. And then they also had an Abu, I believe. One of them was an Abu Garcia. But I had a buddy who would tell me all that stuff, and I was like, I don't know. But I would grab, like, when I was younger, I'd grab the pro qualifiers during the classic because they were like $75, $60. And those are good for the money. But, eventually just kind of got away from them. At one point in time, I had like a whole collage of different reels. And so every time I'd pick something up, I was like, how did the braking system? I forgot this one's finicky. And that's why I went all to the same, different gear ratios. But, that way it's not like having to take the moment to remember which one's which. And if it's how it works, if it's finicky there, plus you get all DCs and the guessing game's kind of done for you.
Right.
So that's kind of what I like about that.
Yeah. I mean, I started out with Cast King. I was like, oh man, these reels are cheap and they're not bad. And
they aren't bad, man. They're terrible. Speed Demon, I think it was called.
Yeah. I had the original Speed Demon and I had the Speed Demon, the newer one. The newer one was actually way shittier than the older one, which sucked because it was more comfortable. I mean, and then you figure out what good, you pay for what it's worth. If you invest the money, then it's an investment. You're going to have it and it's going to last a lot longer. The quality of the product's going to be a lot better. I can't stress that enough.
If anyone's listening to this doesn't use a baitcaster and they're like really tempted to do it, definitely try it. But if you're getting one from Walmart, if you're spending less than $100 on it, just don't do it, because you're probably like, I've met so many people that are like, I tried a baitcaster, I got this one, and I was like, well, how'd it go? And their next line is, it's at the bottom of the lake. I'm like, you can't go get a cheap one and then wonder why you're rat's nesting every 2 seconds, because like the internals are going to stink. But that being said, the $100 price point, which I know to some people may be a lot, but honestly, there are some solid reels for $100 or in that area. It's like, if you just make it to that mark, to me, like your chances of enjoying the baitcaster experience just go up tremendously. So it's like, I know it's a tough jump to make at first, because spinning reels you can get for, the Fluger Presidents are awesome. I've had a couple of them that I've retired since, but those things last forever, and they were like $50 when I got them. But for baitcasters, you gotta just double that and just try it out, or try somebody else's. I've let people try my DCs a couple times.
Nate Goodwin just said Abu Garcia Black Max is solid. I will contest to that. I had a Black Max for years, man.
I see them all over YouTube.
They're so cheap. Yeah. And they are good reels.
That's another company I gotta try.
I heard, I don't know if this is true, anybody watching or listening, correct me. I heard that they used to be made in Sweden, but now they're not. Now they got moved somewhere else where the product is kind of shitty.
I've just noticed Greg Blanchard has switched over to him. It looks like exclusively. I don't know. Sorry, I don't sound like a Greg Blanchard stalker, but he used to have Shimano's. I would notice. I mean, I just picked that up when I'm watching it, and now he has like all of the Abu Garcias. He has like the Iconelli one, which I have learned to kind of stay away from signature series stuff when it comes to like reels with a gimmicky paint job. Although apparently they're priced at a point that seems legit. I just have never tried one. But they have some cool looking reels. I've kind of settled in with Shimano, and I'm going to give that a little bit of time, but I hear things about them, but I've just never tried them out.
Yeah. I could be wrong. It could be maybe the lower end price point ones are not made in Sweden anymore, but I'm not sure. That's just, I've heard. I could be completely wrong, and I apologize. But hey, it wouldn't be the first
any
time.
reps out there.
Yeah. Cool, Adam. So now we're just going to ask the crowd, do they have any questions for you? Because we're coming up on an hour and 15. It flew, man.
Yeah, man. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Anybody out there want to ask Adam some questions? Ask him about anything in specific? What his favorite hardcore and punk band is?
Oh, that'd be a tough one.
So talking about hardcore and punk, I reached out to Ken not too long ago. So there's this band called Ikulu from New York. They are a crossover band. Have you heard of them?
No, they just put
sounds familiar though.
They just put out a new album called Unscrew My Head. Now, their first EP, I can't remember the name of it, was incredible. One of my favorite EPs ever. So they just put out an album called Unscrew My Head, and it is perfect. If you're familiar with,
I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, it's been cross-referenced with Iron Age's Constant Struggle. That type of sound of cross, but in my opinion, leaning more Cro-Magsy. So
I'm in Cro-Mags.
It's unbelievable. It's been on repeat on Spotify for me. Buddy who likes, heavy music, but it's not too crazy heavy. Check out Ikulu, Unscrew My Head.
You might have to send that name to me. I don't know if I'm going to spell it correct, but that sounds awesome. Yeah. I've been in a little bit of a music rut lately too, so that'll help. I just kind of go all over the place these days. Sabbath is my favorite, so I do like punk and hardcore. Sabbath is like the peak for me, like obsessed with Sabbath. So, but yep. I was in a couple punk bands and stuff in high school and college. It was fun stuff, but nothing like too crazy. But I've always been into it. Used to go to shows all the time. And we may have crossed paths. I don't know. Ken and I talked about a show one time. He's bringing up, like, dude, I was there. I feel like I said that, but of course I didn't have a reason to know him at the time. I was also, I was kind of a shithead in college, so still am in some respects. But at shows and everything, you know how those shows are. Everyone's like got to be like chest puffed out, even though there's nothing going on or reason to do it. But
I love it. I love everything about it.
I just kind of realized like shows are starting up again, and I'm like, hey, Gate Creeper's coming around, I think in the fall or August, and I'm like, might have to do this again. I don't like being out late at night during the week, but I work from home now, so might be able to pull some of these shows off.
Cool. All right, so Adam, really appreciate coming on here. I really enjoyed chit-chatting with you about, kayak fishing, tournament trails, EKF, all the hard work you're putting in. Want to say thank you again. Do you have any last words?
Well, thanks for having me. Of course, John, I appreciate it, the opportunity, and it was a great conversation. So thank you. I guess I should give a shout out to my sponsors really quick. Bonafide, Yak Attack, Woo Tungsten. And I have another one that's sort of half and half right now. I don't know if I should say it just yet, but maybe I'll have an announcement on my social media soon. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, everybody, for supporting EKF. Thank you, John, for having me on here. And honestly, I want to give a big shout out to MAKB just in general. One of the things I learned early on is like you guys travel, like you guys show so much support. And I don't think it gets credit enough. And I'm not saying this is not a jab at any other crew, but like it's so funny because whenever I go to a tournament, no matter how far it is, whatever, it's always like, oh, the mask guys are over here. And it's always referred to that way. Jason and I always refer to it because you guys travel like so well and there's so many of you. It's like the mask guys are here. I just want to say kudos to you guys for getting out there and supporting it, but also for supporting EKF. At Messalonci, I got to see a lot of people from your club that I hadn't been able to see in like a year and a half or so. And it was just awesome to see everybody. It was funny. I brought my father-in-law to the EKF event. He competed in his first ever tournament, and my brother-in-law was there as well. And we were driving back on Saturday, and he was just like, I can't believe how many people you know. And I'm like, that's why, that's what this is, right? Like this is, and, it was just awesome. And it was fun to share that with him, but also it was just a great reminder of like, these events are more than just a tournament, like it's just a good time. And, I just really appreciative this year after not having it last year. So thank you guys. Thank you, John. Thanks for having me on here. Appreciate it.
Man, Adam, it's a family thing. It's crazy. No matter how good you do at these trails, whether you win it or whether you skunk, you go back.
I'm the same. Yeah. I'm the same mentality. I don't win much, so it's pretty easy, but like I've had some really bad days, man. But like, if you aren't in it for the fun first, you're going to burn out quick. And that's like one thing I tell people every time. I think they get a little put off by that, but I'm like, if you think you're going to go into this and win, I'm not saying you're not, but it's a very low win percentage sport. If you don't like fishing, like the people you're doing it with, because a lot of people ask me like, does it get like super competitive with the guys? And I'm like, it doesn't, because it is competitive, but you're just trying to have a better day than the next person. I'm not like throwing like a rope in your prop trying to sabotage you. Like we're still at the end of the day happy for each other because we're just trying to have, a better day than the other person, but we're not like, squaring off. So I was like, I think it's just different that way. It's almost like passive competition or something, but it really is just an awesome time. I'm really appreciative for all of it. And I've met so many people through the sport. It's just fantastic. I'm very super appreciative, and I feel very fortunate to be a part of it. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, and if you think about it, you are putting a big part of it. Anybody that's trying to progress sport and being part of it, thanks, guys. On that note, Adam, have a wonderful night. Have fun fishing, tight lines. Thanks to anybody who checks us out, views in, or listens on one of the podcast networks. I really appreciate it. Even though this is a small podcast, I'm doing it for you guys. Take care, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Ron. Take care.